Recording. Okay. Okay, it's recording. So first of all, thank you, Craig, to accepting like doing this interview with us. I always remember that the game that introduced me to the Sega universe was Sonic 2.
Yeah, me too.
So having you here, it's like unbelievable for me because I'm talking like to a hero of my childhood.
Well, thank you. It's very surreal that after all this time, you know, and talking and meeting people like you guys and
Yeah.
realizing what this, the impact this had on people, is just it's heartwarming and fun and a little scary. It's a little, like I say, it's a little surreal, but I'm glad I was very lucky to be a part of it. Very lucky.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember that some of the games that you worked at, they were life-changing for a lot of people. They really influenced many people that I know. Me personally, I remember Sonic 2. The first Sonic game that I played was Sonic 1, and it was at a friend's house. And after that, I begged my mother to buy a Mega Drive for me. And the first game that I had was Sonic 2. It was just released, and it kind of shaped my life in many ways.
Yeah, it's
A lot of people actually.
Yeah.
Sonic 2, it's regarded by most fans as the best 2D
yeah.
Sonic game. It was extremely revolutionary for many people.
It's one of the stories. Now, this wasn't Sonic. This was Spyro,
Mhm.
but a story that really it took me by surprise was for the past few years I've been working at a children's museum here in LA, and they have a every Thursday morning you could sign up, and it was a show and tell. You could bring in something interesting and
Mhm.
just spend 15 minutes talking about it with everybody. And lots of people there says, "Oh, Craig, you got to bring some of your artwork in, some video game stuff." So I brought in some stuff, and as I'm talking, most people there knew I made games,
Mhm.
but they didn't know specifics, which games or
Yeah.
when. And as I'm talking, and as I get to my time at Insomniac and start talking about Spyro, my boss, my direct supervisor, his eyes kind of open up and his jaw kind of drops a little bit, and he's just staring at me as I'm talking. And afterwards he goes, "You made Spyro?" he goes, because that was his game. That was the
Yeah.
game, because he was younger than I am. That was the game he grew up on. And so it was this weird, because he was also my boss. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
he was my boss, but kind of fanboy, And so it was very fun. It was very that was some time ago, and it started to really make it click for me
Mhm.
what these games I worked on mean to people. That they're more than just games for some people.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and that's also what really prompted me, that and a couple things, to start digging through my boxes and finding
Mhm.
stuff and getting it out there, because no one's enjoying it sitting in a box in my garage.
Yeah, of course. And we're eager to get to that part, actually. But I want to try to keep things chronologically a
Oh,
little.
please, and stay on me for that. I tend to go off on
No,
tangents and talk.
please
So
feel
don't,
free.
please keep me online.
And you
I,
know
I,
what, Craig? The Sega Genesis or Mega Drive for us, it's still going here in Brazil. So
that's
there is
true.
a company named Tectoy that they have the license, and they are still producing like the Sega Genesis here. So a lot of people are like playing, like Sonic 2, because the Sonic 2
Wow.
comes with the console. So
Yeah,
it's very
That's awesome.
important for us
it's
this
a huge
interview.
legacy.
Yes.
Actually,
There's,
fun fact.
I mean, when things went 3D, I mean, even when they first started going 3D, everyone jumped on that 3D, which from a business standpoint you needed to do.
Yeah.
But there's so many good games that could
And
side
now
scrolling
I
type
feel like
games.
I feel like in the past few years, the industry started realizing that there's still a lot of potential in 2D games.
Yeah.
And that's great because for people like us who grew up with them and love them, it's very nostalgic, and I feel like we value those games more than maybe the newer generations. But they're getting into the hype train as well. They're getting excited with 2D games and all.
I would love to see that. I would love to see that.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, do you remember the first time you played a video game, and when did you decide that you wanted to work with video games?
See, I feel really bad because I've been so fortunate and worked on these games, and it was all kind of by accident.
Oh yeah.
Because as much as I like games, and as involved as I have been in some pretty huge games, I'm not a hardcore gamer. It's which is one of the reasons when I've worked designing games, I'm not a very good game designer because I haven't seen everything. You know, you need to play lots to know what works, what doesn't work, what's been done, what hasn't been done. But to get back to your question, my first game system was a ColecoVision. So it's just basically Pong. My friend, my neighbor, my friend had an Atari 2600, which I would still love to get. I want to get one of those. That there's you know, and but after that, I didn't play much. I played arcade games, Asteroids, Pac-Man, Space Invaders, Battlezone, all these arcade games. That's where I spent most of my time playing games back in high school. And then I kind of stopped. And so I didn't have any of the, you know, the Nintendo. I hadn't even heard about a Genesis and Sega. I mean, kind of heard about them, seen ads, but didn't think about it. And so the first time I really played a Nintendo was after, well, let me say, I'll try not to get too far off on tangents.
No, that's okay.
The way I got into the industry, because I was doing computer graphics, business graphics, boring pie charts. And I was married at the time, and I would come home. I did not like the job. So I'd come home, and my wife would have the newspaper and have jobs circled that she thought I'd be interested in. And one day she called me at work and says, "I have found your job. I have found your dream job." And it was an ad from Sega that I kept this. I know I have it buried somewhere. Hopefully I haven't lost it. It said, wanted video game artist and game designer, no experience necessary. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's me. That would be fun. And so I called, you know, sent in a basic resume and got a call back saying, yes, we'd like to meet you. And here's what we'd like you to bring or prepare, you know, send us. And that's when I realized that I hadn't even touched a Nintendo. I'd never played Mario. And I'm like, oh crap. So I called a friend and go, hey, can I borrow your NES? And he brought it over, and I for the next 2 or 3 days, I played Mario and Duck Hunt, every game he had. And so that was the first home system I played was a Nintendo, but it was somebody else's because I realized I needed to know a little something.
I feel like a lot of people in the industry kind of had that start. They were working in their respective areas, and then suddenly an opportunity to work on a video game company appears.
Well, because it was a small industry at that point.
Yeah.
And prior to that had been almost exclusively programmers. You know, they did the art was little boxes moving around.
Yeah.
So you needed an artist to do the box art, and that was it. And so about the time the Genesis kicks in, now you need real artists. Now you got, you know, it's beyond the programmers. And so, yeah, so I'm guessing a lot of people that came in probably have similar stories. But yeah, so it was very lucky. I kind of fell in, really no experience necessary. Yes, that's me. Sign me up.
And how was like your experience like going to work like for Sega? Like do you remember what was like the first project?
I thought when I first applied for the job, I thought it was going to be their arcade division, making arcade games. So I was honestly a little, let down that it was going to be this home system. In hindsight, I'm very, very glad it was the home system and not the arcade systems, for just lots of reasons. But just more, I think, because it's a handful of people know the arcade games. Everybody knows Sonic. and the Genesis and their Mega Drive. So it was then I thought I was going to be working on Dick Tracy, which was the game Sega Technical Institute, STI, was working on, and that's my STI jacket there. As I said,
very nice.
I can pull those up closer in a little bit if you'd like.
That's really nice.
Yeah,
and that jacket's from the Sonic Tuesday, right?
Yeah, Sonic Tuesday, and then the one next to it is specifically Sega Technical Institute, and then my Sega Letterman jacket back there.
That's so nice.
That's so nice.
So yeah, so I knew they were doing a Dick Tracy game based on the movie, and so once again was a little upset to come in and find out, no, you're not working on that, because it was almost done. And so the first game we did was Kid Chameleon, which once I got into it, I was thrilled, terrified, because I had no experience and learning animation. I'd never done animation before, and a whole new system and a whole new environment, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I had some very severe anxiety issues that I'd been able to deal with my whole life. And I was able to deal with at Sega, basically because I had some good people around me and I was still kind of young and naive. Yeah, so the first game was Kid Chameleon.
Wow, and it's such a big game, with a lot of different mechanics.
It's huge. That's a fun one to bump into people that know it, because the people that know it love it.
Yeah.
But most people know, I'd never heard about that.
Yeah, I remember that when Kid Chameleon was released, it was kind of one of the objectives was showing that Sega was for cool kids and Nintendo was for like small children and
kids.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because Kid Chameleon, the cover art and all, he's always cool. He has a leather jacket and all. It's really nice, and it's a very American game because Sega until then had mostly Japanese games.
Yes,
and that they were kind of maybe a little odd for American audience.
Well, that was the purpose of STI. Mark Cerny, who headed up and started STI, that was his goal, was to try and blend American and Japanese styles. The whole plan was for Japan to send people over to join STI, and for STI to send people Americans to Japan and learn from each other and learn styles. So from there on out, about half of STI's team were Japanese. Unfortunately, we never sent anybody to Japan to work. I got to go to Japan, and that's a whole other story I'm sure we can talk about. But no Americans ever went to Japan to work on a Japanese team, which was a little depressing for me. As I was hoping to be able to do that. But
I feel like Mark Cerny actually worked in Japan with Sega for quite some time in the 80s, right?
Who did? Mark?
Mark?
Yes.
Mark Cerny worked.
Yes.
And right.
That became instrumental in how Sonic 2 ended up being done here.
Yeah.
So, because of his connections and his friends in Japan.
That's very interesting. And you said in another interview that when you guys first got the demo for Sonic 1, it was it was a beautiful game. It was stylish and all, but it wasn't so fun to play because it didn't have rings yet, or something like that.
Yes. Yeah, we got it. And well, when Mark designed came up with the idea for Kid Chameleon, he had two goals, from the best of my memory. Two goals. One, he wanted to make the longest game in on the Genesis, which he did. It was, and but also Sega was looking for a mascot, to go up against Mario, and he was hoping our little character Kid or Kevin or whatever he ended up being called would be that mascot. And then we got the first Sega game, our first Sonic game, and as you just said, beautiful. So technologically, some really cool stuff. The loops, as simple as those look.
Yeah.
Mark had to sit down and go, how are they doing that? Collision wise, and you're passing in front of and behind art, and the water effects. Okay, this is really cool. What are they doing? But we'd play it for a couple of minutes and put the controller down and go back to work. And I wish I had better notes on this, but sometime later, we got the next a new version where the rings worked. And crap, man, it was wow. Now we're fighting over who got to play, because now it was almost addictive.
Yeah,
it was interesting to such a little thing completely transformed the game.
Yeah, and it's a huge part of the game because I remember, like in Mario you had coins that you get, but they're not used for anything. They're useless. In Sonic you have those rings, and every time something hits you, you lose them, and you have to grab them as fast as you can.
That gets the adrenaline going, because
exactly.
I'm trying to remember on that first version we played if there are rings at all. I think there were. I think you were picking up rings, but when you got hit, nothing happened. You would fly and bounce, but no rings flew. But I think you were picking up rings. So once again, very Mario-esque there.
And also I remember the first stage on Sonic 1 Green Hill Zone. It took like a lot of time for them to create this stage, and the palm trees in the background, they had a pseudo 3D effect to them. And when the game was released, people thought it was crazy. It was so revolutionary and beautiful and stuff like that. And from an artist point of view, I suppose this game must have had an impact on you guys, right?
It was a very different look. That polygonal quasi 3D look. It's one of those games where you can pull it up and instantly say that's Sonic.
Yeah. The special stage has some pseudo polygonal fish and birds and stuff like that in the background, and it was crazy because if you don't know better, you feel like the game is running in 3D stuff. In the middle of it.
That was that was a brilliant decision, whether it was a conscious decision of let's play up the 3D look, or if it was just an intuitive artist's call somewhere. I don't know the history on that, but
I feel like it was probably a conscious decision, because on every Sonic game they had some kind of pseudo 3D stuff going on. So on Sonic 2, the special stage when you're running and grabbing stuff, it wasn't actually 3D, but it looks.
Oh, that was a miserable level to work on. I don't. Programming for me is this voodoo black magic over my head. I don't understand it at all. But I know, boy, that I can remember hearing the programmers complaining, and I'm trying to remember if I know I did some work on that 3D stuff, and I don't remember specifically what it was. I know the art director was Tim Skelly, who has recently just passed away, unfortunately. I'm trying to remember, because I remember there was just so much. I look at that and all I feel is frustration. I don't remember specifically what. It's just a very frustrating level.
Yeah.
To watch. And we had to, I don't know if this translates, but and I think it ended up still being in the game. I can't remember, but the whole, you had the red ball, you're collecting the blue balls. And it was, I think it said get blue balls. Blue balls here is something very, very different.
That's a very funny story, because when the Japanese created the special stage for Sonic 3, they called it Get the Blue Balls. And when they showed it to you guys were like, well, you can't call this stage Get the Blue Balls. And then they changed it for Get the Blue Spheres. And when I was a kid, I always thought it was kind of weird, because sphere isn't a very simple word.
No,
so
it's not a good
Get
word.
the Blue Spheres felt kind of weird, but Get the Blue Balls obviously would feel even weirder.
Yeah.
So I get why they did that. And on Sonic 2, one of the levels that they had to change the name, it was originally called Genocide City, right? Yeah, and they didn't think...
No, you can't use the word genocide.
Yeah, I feel like maybe they didn't know exactly what it meant. So it sounds like a cool...
it's a nice sound. Genocide City. It's a nice sound. But it's words have history and meaning beyond.
I feel like you guys must have helped them a lot on this kind of stuff all the time, because they had no experience, or they were kind of clueless in some ways.
Well, because if you go back, all the Japanese games, not all, but a lot of Japanese games, there's still a lot of English in the games. Which reminds me, I'm trying to think which game it was. I can't remember if I was at Sega or if I was at Insomniac. And we had to change all the signage to Japanese. I could actually have two different stories in both. When I was at Sega, we had to was it Kid Chameleon? We had to change a bunch of the signage to Japanese. And it was stuff that clearly it's like stop and go and these words, and we're like, but in the Japanese games, they use English for this exact purpose. Oh no, you got to make everything Japanese. Wow. And which made no sense. And then for Spyro, we had to, on at least Spyro 1, we had to go through for the Japanese version and make all the eyes brown. Why? Let's look at some Japanese anime and Japanese games. Eyes are every color under the sun. Really big.
Eyes, hair, that they're always
so it was just this
colorful.
Very strange going the other direction.
Sometimes I feel like localization has always had a very weird history in games and stuff like that. There's a joke that goes around that any Japanese game, the American cover, the characters are always angry. So when you see Sonic, the Japanese cover, he's kind of cool and all, but in the American cover, he's always kind of angry.
More attitude.
Yeah. Kirby, there's a lot of characters.
It's interesting as it's and the name title changes. Sometimes it makes sense. Like Genocide City. You got to change that. But what a game's called, here versus what the game's called in Japan versus what the game's called in Europe, gets changed. And sometimes you're like, why? I mean, Spyro again. Spyro 2 was Ripto's Rage, and Ripto's a made-up word. It actually comes from, if you look at Spyro written in Japanese, it looks like Ripto in English. And so that's where we got the name for this boss, the bad guy in Spyro 2 was Ripto. And for some reason, Europe, no, let's call it Gateway to Glimmer. And we're like, okay. The translation. I feel like sometimes there's reasons, sometimes you're like, why? I think it's sometimes it's people trying to prove that their job, they're doing their job.
Exactly. I feel like sometimes, especially with Japanese people in the video game industry, because they feel like they kind of own it and stuff like that, they want you to change it just because they can make you change it. So
yeah, sometimes I get that feeling. Or got that feeling.
I guess.
You know, and whether it's it's my guess is it's not even the dev team most of the times. Although Yuji Naka, the programmer for Sonic, he was definitely one of those
Control
Japanese
freaks.
Better.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times that's probably coming from marketing. At least on the American side, I knew a lot of the dumb stuff was being pushed by marketing, definitely not by the dev team.
Yeah. So talking about the Japanese developers, after Sonic 1, Yuji Naka left Sega from Japan, right?
Yes.
And he came to work for Sega of America.
Yes.
So when do you guys discover that you would create Sonic 2 in America?
I'd like to know more about the specifics behind the scenes. I just know what I know, but I was friends with Mark Cerny, and he was instrumental in this. Because like you pointed out, he'd worked in Japan, and he became friends with Naka when he was in Japan. So when Naka got sick and tired of Sega and quit, and Sega, I'm not sure, although Sonic was definitely planned by them to be their big mascot character in a huge game, and I'm assuming they would have realized we need a sequel. But they let Yasuhara on that STI thing where we're trading people. Yasuhara came to Sega STI, and then Naka quit. I'm not sure exact timeline here, but Naka quit. Sega realized, oh crap, we need a sequel, and we need Naka and we need Yasuhara. Mark contacted Naka and says, hey, why don't you come to America? You can work with me. You're at Sega, but you don't have to deal with Sega. I'll deal with Sega. You just come and work with me. And so that's how we got the lead designer and the lead programmer for Sonic in the United States. And I think Sega would have loved to have done it. Although I don't know, would have loved to have done it in Japan. But the point of Sonic, I now understand, was to kind of bring in the American audience a little bit. So maybe it was somebody's master plan to develop it here.
I remember.
I doubt that. That's too much planning.
There's a book called Console Wars about the battle between Sega and Nintendo, and they interviewed Tom Kalinske, and he said that Sega of America actually changed a lot of stuff about Sonic in the pre-production time. So originally, from the Japanese project, the Japanese plans, Sonic was supposed to be kind of feral. He would have big teeth and kind of I'm sorry. He would have big teeth and spike collar or something like that. And Sega of America said, no, calm down. We need to have a mascot. We need to have a character. He can be cool. He can be feral or something like that. And Sonic 2, originally Tails was supposed to be called just miles per hour.
That was Yamaguchi. That was Yamaguchi who designed Tails and came up with the concept for Tails. That was his name, was miles per hour.
Yeah, and because the Japanese thought that miles per hour was such a good pun for a name that they had to use it. And the Americans, like Tom Kalinske and stuff, they were like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun, but
Tails is such a nice, simple name.
Yes.
And they actually convinced Yuji Naka to use Tails. So in the games, he's called Miles Tails per hour.
Yeah, and if you look, there's background. Some of the backgrounds say miles per hour.
Yeah,
and that's Yamaguchi's doing the arcs. Like, well, fine, I'm gonna stick miles per hour wherever I can.
So
Yeah, Tom. I'm glad Tom Kalinske. I mean, I met him a number of times, but never, we weren't friends. But just a nice guy, very charismatic, and I think it's wonderful that somebody that high up has been so open and giving of here's what I know, and talking and getting this stuff out, because he knows things that I saw the end result of those discussions. But I was not part of those meetings or those discussions, because I was this grunt artist. I mean, it was only the second game I ever worked on.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to hear his point of view on it, because it's a very different point of view than pretty much anybody else on the teams.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
He had kind of feeling, so he changed a lot of stuff that actually proved to be the right choice.
Yeah.
But no one else could see it. He had a feeling on stuff that he was very important for Sega's success, right? Because
in America, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, because and that's where they did realize we need to blend these two cultures.
Yeah.
At Sega if we want to be successful in America, because some of the stuff plays well in America, but some of the Japanese games are just weird. They're just bizarre. I can remember specifically when this was later. This is on the PS1. Can't remember what the Japanese title was. In America, it was Blowout. But when we played it, we played the Japanese version, and there was no manual. Or if we had a manual, it was all in Japanese, so we couldn't read it. And it was this bizarre game, but it was fun. But you had to kind of figure out what's going on, and it was just it just got so weird that we just couldn't figure out how to play it. And then finally, much to our pleasant surprise, it got imported and translated, and it was just as weird in English. How it made it to the States, I don't know. Because the level we got stuck on is you get on this big Ferris wheel with a woman, your girlfriend or your wife, I can't remember, and you're trying to make the Ferris wheel go around, and there's a little bar, and we can never figure out how to make it work. And it was all these little mini games. And once we got in, it's like, oh, you're trying to bring her to orgasm. And so that's how you got to go around. You're like, what? It's like, okay.
They had a lot of crazy ideas for games. And I remember on the Dreamcast, Sega released a game called Rez, R-E-Z. And it was kind of a mix between visual and audio effects. You're flying and a lot of stuff going on. But they created this game thinking that the feeling that the game will bring to you will be the stage. So there's a stage that's like anger, and you're playing and you get angry. There's a stage that's like peaceful or something like that. And after Sega started porting their games for other systems, Sony got this port for the PS2. And for some reason, I don't know who had this idea, who made that happen, but they released a vibrator for the game. So the girl would sit on this vibrator while her boyfriend would play the game. And that's such a crazy idea. And when I heard it the first time, I thought, yeah, that's fake, obviously. But then I started researching, and that's true. It was released, obviously, only in Japan, but that's true. It exists somewhere.
Well, I think part of that, and that was one of the cultural things.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing this so much at Sega, but once again, this is partially technology and partially the nature of the games we were doing to a computer. But the difference of what's allowable and what is not. In America, violence is perfectly okay. You can blow anything up and have blood dripping down the screen. That's fine. You can't have anything even remotely sexual.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise you get in trouble. You go to Europe, you could have nudity and sex on the game. You can't show blood.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting. You know, I think
Yeah,
a nice thing would be
very
somewhere in the
different.
middle would be a nice place to be culturally
Yeah,
for the world.
exactly.
Yeah, I remember because on Disruptor, the first Insomniac game, we had to be very careful to not have any blood. And if there was, it had to be blue or something. And we had a rat, this mutant rat that got hit, and we literally had hair fly off of it because it couldn't be blood, but there's this black hair flies off. For the German version of the game, we had to paint out to remove the hair because it looked too much like blood.
Wow.
So it just, and Japan's even out there more weird of what is completely acceptable and
Yeah. On Sonic 2, I'm aware that you worked with designing some stages, and you worked on Oil Ocean Zone and Hidden Palace Zone,
Hidden
right?
Palace, yes. And this
anything else that you remember working besides those zones?
Those are the only two zones I actually did final art on. There was some early concept stuff, really basic. And I'm not sure, this was very early in the process. And I remember pitching this idea about some kind of circus level. And I've got, in fact, I realized the other day, I don't have that image scanned in. I'm very frustrated that I don't have I have very little sketches from Sonic, or actually from my time at Sega. I have very few drawings. I have some stuff from Kid Chameleon, but I only have like 1 or 2 pages from Sonic 2. And one of them is this idea of some kind of clown or a circus-based level. I remember pitching it a little bit. I remember trying to do this polygonal Sonic look of a red and white striped tent, just to pitch the idea. I really don't. Everything blurs from back then. So I mean, the one thing that I still have the drawings of that I would still like to have seen would have been fun is I pitched it when they said they wanted a player 2 character, a second character. I pitched this idea of a little turtle. That Sonic was really slow. It was to play off Sonic is fast. The turtle's slow. But you could push the turtle. Sonic would push the turtle and kind of kick in his turbojet supercharges, and all of a sudden he'd be fast. Is it what's the Godzilla monster? I got the
turtle one.
Gamera is the turtle that flies. So it was kind of on that, and then Sonic could jump on it and ride over hazards and stuff. And so gonna be a fun idea. I mean, Tails was a better idea.
I feel like this idea was maybe too cooperative, so you always would need to have 2 players to get past some stages, maybe.
Or you would definitely, you could have shortcuts that you could use the second player, but the second player without Sonic would be useless. You'd have to come up with some way to speed him up. And I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of follow through to make it out to work. But yeah, it would have taken a lot more special design work to make it work. He could be it'd still be kind of a cool little character for a mini level or something like that.
It's a very interesting idea. It could work. I can totally see that working on a special stage or something like that. Or maybe one stage of the game would have this character that helps you and stuff like that. Sounds very nice, very interesting. And you actually created a prototype for a game called Astropede.
Yes.
It was,
I was going to ask about this one.
Yeah, and initially it was pitched as Segapede, just as a working title. I guess trying to kiss up to Sega executives a little bit. That was after Sonic 2, and they just said, hey, anybody who wants to take a couple of weeks, come up with some ideas. Actually, one of the programmers and I first came up with this combat game where you're wizards throwing spells at each other. And that game, Sega said, "Oh, nice, but no thank you." And so then I went off and just by myself and did this Segapede game, which I pitched the idea, and they said, "Yes, we like that." Now, the original concept had that in the Sonic universe. Zip, the little Segapede character, was supposed to be one of Robotnik's little
badniks.
Yeah. And they said, "Okay, we like the game. We don't want it in the Sonic universe. But here's a programmer. You've got, I don't know, a few weeks or a month or whatever to come up with a playable
prototype,
proof of concept."
Yeah.
And so Ken Rose, which was one of the programmers, and I sat down and cranked out. And that's, if you've probably, I've got some videos on YouTube of it.
Yes.
And that's the Hidden Palace artwork.
Yeah.
Because at that point,
the assets from the Hidden Palace, right?
Yeah, because at that point, I was very depressed when Hidden Palace got cut. That to this day, that's still some of my favorite artwork. And
I really like this stage. And on the port for smartphones from 2012, it was released, so now we can play it.
I loved that. It's like, finally, yes.
Yeah.
And finally, people will be able to play properly this stage. Yeah, it was very nice. And I love the music from that stage as well.
One of the questions I get all the time is, what was the original music? And unfortunately, I couldn't. You could play it side by side to me now. I couldn't tell you what was playing back in 1991.
Yeah.
And I learned in another interview that they told you that the stage didn't make to the final game because it didn't have enough memory, right?
Yes.
But the stage was
and then a few months later,
it's
somebody used a Game Genie and hacked in and went, "Hey." Now, reading through just recently here, I've been going through old journals, and it was I was told, somebody also said that they didn't have time to finish programming it. So I knew someone told me that as well, but I remember my memory is, oh no, we didn't have room, we had to cut it.
Yeah. But it was very buggy. I remember you could play it with like Game Genies and stuff like that, but it was very buggy. You couldn't get to the end of the stage.
I was just talking in another interview, and they actually had some of the earlier ROMs. And he told me something I didn't know, which was Hidden Palace was in the game unfinished until like May. Well, it was specific. Basically, it was they stopped programming it. Early on. It wasn't that they're working on it and ran out at the end. It's like, no, they were working on it pretty early on, like May.
Yeah. They gave up on the stage.
Because that was the first artwork I did, was Hidden Palace. And so I finished it and started Oil Ocean. And so they worked on it and then stopped working on it. And I think, if guessing here, looking back, is they realized we've got too much. And so we need to start now focusing on what has to make it into the game, versus this kind of bonus level thing. For Hidden Palace was kind of this extra thing. There's only 2 zones. I don't remember ever doing a boss level, so it was going to be this different.
Yeah, as far as I remember, Hidden Palace Zone was supposed to be a stage that you
after you got all the Chaos Emeralds.
After you get all the Chaos Emeralds, you would go to the Hidden Palace Zone. But it sounds a little maybe confusing for players, because they're on a stage that they've never seen before, and it doesn't change anything in the plot of the game. and you
Yeah.
can turn into Supersonic anytime you want anyway. So maybe they felt like he was kind of
Well, yeah, who knows, you know, how story and flow changed when they realized, okay, we've got to cut this out.
Yeah.
So let's cut everything that connects to that.
Yeah,
Because
that's
if you
true.
don't do that, if you don't cut all this connecting stuff, everyone's even more confused.
Yeah.
So it was but yeah, he pointed out that you know the game and a couple of the early ROMs, it's being worked on clearly, and then all of a sudden, for the last 5 months, it's not touched.
Mm-hmm.
And so, excuse me. But yeah, I was thrilled when it was out there, even if it was on people's phones. They get to see it.
Yeah, it was very nice.
And when YouTube, you know, became a thing, and
Mm-hmm.
people started putting up images of it, I'm like, okay, awesome. You know, it's, you know, and of course, that definitely the case where I'd make comments and everyone would call me this, you know, fake. Oh no, you can, no way, it was made in Japan, and da 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 da.
Yeah, last month we actually interviewed Takeshi Tezuka. He's the guy who made a lot of games from the 90s, and we made a post on our page, Sega Ultimate, about Power Stone, this game. And then out of the blue, this Japanese guy comments on it. Oh, I'm glad you like it. I made this game. And when I saw it, I said, let me check that. And I get into his profile, and it's true, it was him. And we got in touch and we interviewed him. It was very nice, but I suppose most people all the time think everyone's a fake. Like,
because sadly, there are a lot of trolls and stuff out there. You know, when I come across somebody like that, I'll make an attempt or two to go, well, here's who I am, and or then just block them. But then occasionally I had one guy he was calling me all sorts of names, because this was dealing with Spyro. Was it Spyro? Anyway, or maybe it was one of the games. But he was really getting after me. How dare I? And because my username was Go
pretend
Spyro.
to be this guy. Yeah.
How dare you pretend to be this guy? I know this definitely had to be one of the Sega games. Oh, that was made in Japan, and he says, well, my username's Go Spyro. You can see that right here. And I linked actually one of the very first interviews I did on YouTube, and I go, and you see there it says Craig Stitt / Go Spyro, and I expected this guy to just disappear, but he apologized.
That's
I am
nice.
so very sorry. And I go, no, it actually points for you for apologizing and saying, no, I was wrong, and you know, my apologies.
Yeah, that's nice. I wanted to ask you as well about Comix Zone, because I remember playing Comix Zone when it was released, and it was released at the end of Mega Drive life cycle. It was 95, right?
Yeah, that was just as I was leaving Sega.
Yeah, and it was so beautiful. I still feel like now we have some other games that kind of borrow from it. We have Beautiful Joe and stuff like that happens in a comic and stuff like that. But to me, Comix Zone is still one of the most beautiful games in the Mega Drive. It was impressive, and people were always playing it. People were addicted to it. And I wanted to ask, what did you actually do in the game?
Not very much, unfortunately. I got pulled off the Astropede game after working on it about 14 months. I got pulled. They said, well, we're gonna shelve that. We're gonna set that aside. It's like, yeah, it means you're gonna cancel it because we need you to help on Comix Zone. But all I really did on Comix Zone was clean up, because the way it was actually done is we had a traditional paper pencil animator, you know, good old Disney style animator, who animated all the characters. Those line drawings would be scanned in and then filled in and painted, just almost exactly the way you would for a traditional animated movie where you're painting on the cells. Here we're doing it, but it's on the computer. So my job was to, you know, take those drawings. I may have been scanning them in as well and just paint them. So I was just kind of a paint artist and cleaning stuff up. I did the color. Peter, who was the designer on that, did all the artwork or designed all the artwork. And so he did the cover art. It's one of the few times where actually the team did the cover art. I just realized that very rarely happens. But Peter did the cover art. He did it black and white, and then I did the color work on it. And that actually was some airbrush work and whatnot versus on the computer. That's the only game. I told myself when I started making games, I had to complete, I had to finish, I had to beat every game I worked on. That's the only game I never beat.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's a very hard game.
It's stupid hard.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's and that was hardness is I mean, I will admit I'm a pretty poor video game player. But there were certain games where you'd go and tell the designer or the programmers, this is too hard. Like, oh no, it's not. It's like, you designed it, he programmed it. And so yes, it's easy for you. I'm telling you as a player, it's too hard. And like, no. And that was so many games on, Insomniac was hard, Disruptor, very difficult. Some levels on the Ratchet and Clank, way too difficult. Less so on Spyro, but there's still, Insomniac had we had this horrible habit of making you do a complicated move to get to a spot, and then you like Hunter, the cheetah, would be waiting there. So you do this complicated jump that finally get there, and then he would be there to tell you how to do this double flip jump or whatever, which you had to do to get to him. It was just, there were so many times we were teaching you stuff after you'd already had to do it.
Yeah,
but
it's kind of an inside joke from you guys.
Well, it's when I finished, this was back on Kid Chameleon, a realization of how hard it is to finish something that complex, and everything that has to come together to make it work. Sound and programming and art and marketing and everything needs to come together, and how difficult it was to stay consistent, to make the game flow. And we were all pretty much in the same room. And also I started thinking about movies and how you got a team filming in Tunisia and another somewhere in Asia, and then you've got sound stages where they're doing stuff, and then you've got another building where they're in another country, they're making models, and this all has to come together and flow and be invisible. And I remember thinking, how we can barely make this work, and we're all in the same room. And then there's no comparison between the complexities of a video game and a motion picture. So it was a realization there of just the magic and the skill that goes into getting anything finished. Finishing these games is huge. It takes, your managers, it's where it really matters that you've got competent producers and competent managers. Sega STI, the list of games that were awesome games that got canceled. Sometimes after a year or two of development. Wow. It's just sad, and that's, I'm trying to think, when I went to Spinball, one of the reasons I got pulled off of, what was I working on before Spinball? I don't remember. Somewhere I've got this. I finally went through my journals and wrote stuff down. But Sega realized, Sega of America, and at that point, Roger Hector, who was heading up STI, realized we've got 5 or 6 projects going simultaneously. We can't do that. And so it's too much. We don't have the people, we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have anything to be doing this much, because there was Astropede, Spinny and Spike was a little side-scrolling shooter. there was a game, the one game more so almost than Astropede. There was a game called Jester that was in development for almost 2 years, if not more. That was beautiful. It was this cartoony little character that looked like Gumby, this little character made of clay. And the funnest part of the game was getting him killed. It was pretty traditional platformer. You're trying to get past hazards and jump through stuff. But when he got killed, if something big hit him, he gets smashed, and you could set him on fire. You could melt him with acid. He died 1,000 different ways.
Yes.
And it was
later that concept was used in Crash Bandicoot, right? Every time he dies, depending on how he died, there's a different animation and stuff like that. So people kind of enjoyed killing themselves in the game. Yeah. So people try to kill themselves in the game with all different kinds of ways to see the animations and stuff like that.
I like games where there's so much to it beyond the game. Where, like Spyro, I think one of the reasons Spyro was so successful is it's fun just to run around.
Yeah, I remember it was very fun to fly and run around.
Yeah, you could see. Yeah, in fact, on the flying levels, I wanted to turn the timer off and just fly.
Yeah,
we had on Spyro. I remember the first time we actually played it. So it's just a flat green plane. Maybe it had a grass texture on it. And Al, the programmer, says, "Hey, I got Spyro up and running." Although at that time, I think we were calling him Pete, just because we didn't have a name for him. And Pete's Dragon. There's the movie Pete's Dragon, which I was, you can't use that. Well, no, the dragon's name is Elliot in Pete's Dragon. Our dragon's named Pete. But we knew it was just a working.
Yeah, just a placeholder.
Just a place. But by the time we got done, after spending almost 2 years, it's like, no, he's Pete. It was really hard for me to let go of the name Pete. But anyway, you sat down and grabbed him, and you could spend 20 minutes just running, chasing your tail, not picking up anything, nothing in the environment, just running around in circles. And I remember thinking, we've got a game here. This is fun, and there's no game. And so it's there's not many games where it's fun just to run around.
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto, setting aside all the, I remember the first time I played it, and I was very hesitant to go play it with my, because I bought a copy because I remember thinking, there was all these people talking about laws, about banning things or labels, and all of a sudden here's this game where you're picking up hookers and running over people, and like, we don't need this. And then I played it at a party and was like, this is so much fun.
Yeah.
And stopped on the way home and bought a copy. And at the time, Insomniac was in Los Angeles, but I had a 6-year-old son in San Jose, which is about 400 miles, and 300 miles. It's about 4 or 5 hours drive. And I was driving or flying back and forth every weekend to see him. And so I bought a copy, and I was trying to say, when I go up and see him, do I want to let my 10-year-old, I guess he was 10 at the time, play this? I said, yeah. Well, it's like, yes. We played like 14 hours that weekend, never played the game. We just ran around exploring the city. And it's like, fire engine, can you steal the fire engine? And we'd steal the fire engine and drive around. And so that was, it's rare that you can have a game that's fun when you're not actually playing the game.
Yeah, and they're called sandbox for a reason, right?
Yeah.
You're walking around and creating a new story and just playing with stuff. Yeah, it's very fun, very nice, very interesting.
Craig, I have a question. Last year, you posted a picture of a Tales game.
Yeah.
And I'd like to ask you if you remember something about this prototype, if you have like more info.
Of which game?
It was a game, the Tales.
Tales.
Tales prototype, yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of more information. I I tracked down because I thought maybe Yasuhara from Sonic had helped me out on that or had done some game design on it, and so I was able to get a hold of him and just trade some emails. And he says he doesn't remember. He says he could have maybe done something on it, but he doesn't remember anything. He says he remembers. There's a lot of time in that time period he doesn't remember because it was so stressful. Because this would have been when he was working on Sonic 3. But I've since found out that Sega wanted, I worked on it from early December of would that be 90? Actually, I wrote this stuff down right here. December 92. They came to us and said that they wanted a game with tails, a little some kind of game. And so we pitched this idea. We all got together and pitched some ideas and had this adventure kind of what's not hexagonal. What's the funny angle, the forged perspective. My brain just went blank. And that's where you see that in the screenshots. And so, but we worked on that till about April. And there was 4 of us. I was the only artist, 2 programmers and a game designer. I've talked to one of the programmers, and he thinks he might even have the ROMs for that because it was 4 months, and so there would have been some playable stuff.
Yeah.
My memory, I say it's really spotty because I had forgotten completely about that, and it wasn't until somebody saw a tape I made for my resume when I was leaving STI. They said, "What's this Treasure Tales game?" And I went, "What Treasure Tales game?" I actually had to go back and watch my resume tape and go, "Oh crap, I don't know." And then also I can remember doing the artwork. And so I'm still at this point. I'm not sure if the 4 screens I had were. They look like mock-ups. But after 4, I have this vague memory of actually having to be quasi-playable as well. So even if they actually, if they weren't mock-ups, we didn't have a good way of taking a screenshot. So it could have been playable, and this was just me mocking up what it looked like. Unfortunately, it got canceled, and we got once again too many games going on, and they needed me to go on to December, February, March, April. Treasure Tales got canceled. Once again, it was postponed. It wasn't canceled. And that way, everyone got put on Spinball. So,
yeah. I feel like if we could get a hold of the ROMs, it would be very nice for all the fans. It would be
it's
really something special,
Well, the Astropede game, I have a set of ROMs for it of that first playable.
And they were never released.
I can't find them.
They're lost.
I know I had them the last time I moved, before the last time I moved. I'm not sure I've seen them since I moved. So that's, but I'm also missing an entire box of video games that I know I had since this last move, which was 10 years ago now. But I'm missing the box that has my Genesis and has all my signed copies of everything in it. So all my Sega games, all my Insomniac games, all my signed copies are in a box, and I'm hoping those ROMs are in that box. It must just be mislabeled in the back of another box, because I've gone through most everything.
If you find this box, please let us know.
I will get it out there. And as once again, Ken Rose, the programmer that worked on both Treasure Tales and Astropede, he believes he still has code. He has his old hard drives. And so I've been after him.
We'll try to get in touch with him as well. Who knows? Maybe we can get this ROM for everyone to play at least some level of playable demo.
I don't know how much was playable on Treasure Tales. Astropede was playable. It was buggy and weird because we, he had to cram the code. As you've seen it, the whole concept, and I still love this idea because it plays off that spring, the rings shower.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd get hit, and these little carts, these power-ups that you drag behind you would fly off.
And you know what?
That's very interesting. You have the centipede that grows every time you get another piece of it.
The power-ups would be scattered around the world.
When you get hit, you go losing pieces. That's very interesting.
And if you had an enemy that had a weapon was shooting at you, you shot that enemy, that weapon could fall and you'd pick it up and it'd be part of your train. That's and there was a last piece that you had to hunt around and find that was a end cap. It was the tail. Because if you didn't have the tail, if you get going too fast, pieces would start falling off the back. And so then you had to find a tail. So if you got hit, you definitely didn't want to lose the tail because then you couldn't go fast. So it would still be fun to play. I would love to see someone do
that. I'm sure if we can get a hold of the ROM, I'm sure there are a lot of programmers and designers who would be very happy to try and kind of not actually complete the game, because I'm sure it wasn't near the point of completion. But at least, who knows, maybe complete one stage or something like that from the game.
It's just a proof of concept of, hey, this is where it is. And none of the only weapon that works is he has a little blaster. So nothing in the train doesn't actually do anything. Because you could pick up motors, engines to go faster, and spikes that would protect you from attacks, and rocket launchers and lasers, but none of that worked. It literally was just a train dragging behind you, with very basic animations. But it's still, as I say, I've got one corner set of boxes that actually I haven't pulled out, opened up, and emptied and gone through.
Please.
There is a website that they just go after these ROMs for preservation, and the name of the website is Hidden Palace. Yes,
that's
so true. I think they are the biggest website just to collect ROMs for preservation. And man, they do an amazing job about this. And they released it this year, the prototype of Sonic 1 that people always wanted this ROM, So I'm sure if you send this ROM to them, it will spread everywhere.
I'd love to know if that first version of Sonic I played is still out there.
I'd like to try this version without the rings or something like that. It must have been a very different experience. I'd like to try that. Let's hope someone still has it and releases.
It would be a relatively easy experiment to get into the code and just turn the ring splash off.
Yeah.
That's true.
And there may have been more to it, but that's the one thing that sticks in my mind of the first time it happened. You're like, whoa.
And Craig, another question. From all your projects in Sega or after Sega, what is your favorite project that you worked?
Definitely Spyro the Dragon.
Spyro the Dragon.
Because that's the one's near and dear to me. It's if I hadn't been at Sega, somebody else would have done the artwork for Kid Chameleon and Sonic 2 and the games I worked on there. Somebody else would have picked up that art. Maybe it'd be better. Maybe it wouldn't be as good. It would have gotten done by somebody. And then Disruptor and Ratchet and Clank, my games at Insomniac, if I hadn't been there, somebody would have done it. Spyro, if I hadn't been at Insomniac when I was there would be no Little Purple Dragon. Because it was a concept I pitched about being able to be the dragon that grew into Spyro. So if I hadn't been there, I think, because at the end of Disruptor,
the game wouldn't exist.
It wouldn't exist. It'd be something. It'd be completely different. At the end of Disruptor, there was just 4 of us at Insomniac at that point. It was the 2 programmers, Ted Price, who was an artist, working as an artist at that time, 3D artist, as well as running the company, and myself. I was the only artist, actually employee artist. And after Disruptor, Ted says, okay, everyone go off into your corner for, I don't know, it was a couple of weeks, and come back with an idea. We'll pitch it to ourselves. We'll pick one, and we'll pitch that to Universal, which at the time was our publisher, and to Mark Cerny. And the reason I ended up in LA was Mark Cerny. Is he left, during Sonic 2, and I really enjoyed working with Mark. And when I knew I had to get out of Sega, I went, okay, what's Mark doing? I'd love to work with him again. Ended up in LA. And so we everyone, I think Ted pitched a price about, Ted pitched a game about an alien invasion, which I'm going to guess eventually became Resistance on the PS3. Yeah. Al, the lead programmer, pitched an off-road racing game, which came from the fact that it was fun. We're talking about it's fun in some games just to do things that have nothing to do with the game. On one of the Martian levels, or on the Martian level for Disruptor, there's these rolling dunes. It was fun just to run on them and catch air at the top. So that gave him an idea for a whole game. I don't remember what Brian's pitch was, but we liked my Dragon. Everyone voted for my Dragon game. And we pitched that to Mark, because my original pitch was very different. You would start out as a hatchling, and each level you'd be a larger and larger dragon, gaining more power and more attacks, and finally magic and all sorts of stuff. Very Dungeons and Dragons. And a more serious look and feel. Not photorealistic. I've never been a fan of photorealism as an artist in a game, but something fun, but not cute and pink and purples and pastels. But Mark made 2 comments. Mark is one of the reasons Mark is so successful. Is he has the ability to see into the future and know what's going to be needed. And he made 2 comments. One is, if you keep this one's pretty obvious. If you keep the dragon the same age, sequels will be easier. Oh yeah, I hadn't even considered sequels. And 2 is that by the time this game, you guys finish it and ship in 2 years, the average age of the player will have dropped. It won't be 15 to 20. It'll be 10 to 12 or 12 to 15.
Yeah.
And so keep it cute, keep it family friendly. And we ended up going a little cuter and a little younger than we targeted, but that turned out to be perfect.
Yeah, and
because we didn't exclude anybody. It's
kind of cool as well.
Yeah, we didn't exclude anybody.
Dragon, right?
But now you had moms that would sit and play with their 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we bit, it's half, the fan mail I would use, because I used to also answer the fan mail. And I'd get letters, and it'd be a mom or a dad. More often I remember the moms, because what moms write video game companies? Other than to complain about it destroying their sons and it's too violent. And she'd write, say, oh, my little son or my daughter is stuck on this level. Do you have any suggestions? And at the bottom, it would always be, oh, and I'm stuck on this level.
Wow. Nice.
And I remember one said, there's no one to tell me to put the controller down at 1 o'clock in the morning.
So nice.
So
yeah, I remember Spyro was very addictive.
So Spyro's near and dear to me. It was really hard when Insomniac needed to get away from Universal. Universal kind of had their head up their butt.
Yeah.
And but they owned the property rights, and so we had to leave Spyro in their incompetent hands.
That's sad, but that's true. I wanted to ask you, I've read that you were considered as lead art director for Sonic 3 or something like that.
Yeah, there was, that was Roger Hector. I don't know if that was him really meaning that, probably, or if he was just saying something to try and keep me happy. Looking back at journals and stuff like everyone was stressed out at that. There was so much work and so much pressure, turnaround time. But yeah, I'd been told I'd be the lead artist or a lead artist or an art director on Sonic 3. And so, but then Naka, the way Naka would get what he wanted was he threatened to quit. He quit Sega. He threatened to quit Insomniac, Sega of America.
Yeah.
And the solution was typically put a big bag of money in front of him.
Naka is famous for being a very difficult person to work with.
Yeah. I mean, he kind of earns it. I mean, I cut a lot of slack for arrogant, hard to work with people if they're that good.
Yeah.
If it's justified, and it's justified with Naka. It doesn't mean I enjoyed working with him. I mean, but I was a little teed at him, a little pissed that he insisted that he was going to quit unless he had an all Japanese team in his own office. And so it was I don't know if that would have happened even if we'd had an all.
Yeah.
If it hadn't broken up, if I would have ended up I would have been a lead artist of some type. But yeah, I was a little pissed.
If you were, I imagine, if you were the lead artist on Sonic 3, can you think of maybe if you had creative control on the game, what difference or what kind of game you would try to make visually?
That's a good question.
Because that's honestly a version of the game that we have never seen and we will probably never see, but it's nice to think about it, to imagine this game that almost was, right?
Yeah. It's been so long since I've even seen it, and longer since I've played it. And I never played it to completion, partly because I was busy, partly because I was probably pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that would be interesting to see what direction I would have taken things.
I can only imagine, because you did a great job on Spyro. It was, and I feel like Spyro kind of reminds me of Sonic in some ways.
There are somewhere, I don't know if it was conscious or not, but there was definitely lessons learned in the artwork.
Yeah.
And that fun feel. Although I do have to give a lot of credit on the look of Spyro, just in generally to all the other artists, but specifically, and I cannot remember her name. Alicia? No, she was an English, a young woman, English, that her painting style, her artwork style on the computer was very painterly. It was very loose. It really did look like he painted it with a brush and not by pixels. And that look very quickly became Spyro's look. This loose, and her color usages. I mean, we knew we were going to go, bright and pastels and that kind of stuff, but her use of colors, and specifically that painterly quality in her art, had a dramatic effect on my art in that game, because I was always stealing her textures and painting on top of them and using pieces of them, because it was a style I wasn't practiced in. So I had to learn how to paint in her style. So that really had a huge effect on Spyro down the road. Was her style. It was, because it was so perfect for Spyro. It was just this.
Yeah, and the purple, it was chosen because of the green grass, right?
That is to say, I have a YouTube channel with just a handful of videos on it, but one of the things that I managed to save is the videotape of Spyro in all his different colors. Because initially he's green. I've got, actually, do I have that? Where is that? Oh, that's right here. I'll be right just a second here.
Okay.
Okay.
I need to find a way, I need to preserve this.
Wow.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
So this was, we brought in a freelance artist, a character designer named Charles Zimbalist, who also did Crash Bandicoot.
Mm.
And let me put this. And because I pitched an idea for what Spyro would actually look like, but nobody liked My Little Dragon. And when Charles had this pile of drawings on the table, and we're going, it's me and Mark and Ted and the Hastings brothers, and we're going over all this stuff, and I think Michael Johns was there too. And well, we like this part, and we like this, and we like this, but we don't like this. And so I would take Charles's drawings, photocopy them, cut out the piece we liked, and scale it down or scale it up, taped it all together, used some white out, and brought that in.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone went, yes, that's Spyro. So that was this drawing that I then photocopied that and then airbrushed the color. And so that was his original colors are green.
Yeah.
Wow.
It looks really nice.
So
and it looks a lot like the final version of Spyro, besides the
yeah,
color.
Other than the color, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was pretty soon on, we realized that, you're running around. He's gonna be running around on a lot of green grass.
Yeah.
And there was Gex.
Which was green, yes.
Little green reptile. Croc, little green reptile. And I swear there was a third one. It's not Yoshi. I wanted, there was, maybe it was just listed, but I swear there was a third little green reptile on the PlayStation. And so I went and just made a rainbow versions of him in every different color. Because not only did he have to look good, it had to look good on the old television.
Oh, I think I remember.
Yeah.
It was like Clock, I think the name.
What was it called?
Let's just check it.
Because I'd love to know, because it always bugs me, because I'd swear there was 3. But unfortunately, so we put this on video.
Croc.
No, yes, there was Gex and Croc.
Yes.
There was a third one. Maybe there wasn't. But so I made a videotape of him in all these different colors, and he actually looked really cool. This deep brick red. But reds just flared out horribly on the old televisions.
Yeah.
So that didn't work. He actually looked really cool black. Once again, you lost all the details though.
Yeah.
But we had some different shades of green, different shades of blue, some yellows, white. He actually looked kind of cool white. And so that was all a little videotape. Unfortunately, I'd love to go back in time and whisper in my ear to archive all this stuff and be more careful and hang on to this stuff, because yes, in 30 years you're going to be talking about this, or 25 years in Sonic's case or Spyro's case, because that videotape, I taped over the front minute or two of it for some other demo, some other test. Luckily I kept the tape, but I don't have the original colors for Spyro on that tape. It gets taped over, because I'd like to know what color was he originally. I don't remember. So he used to be green. The one thing that always bugged me, and no one else, I don't know why I keep bringing this up, because no one else has ever noticed, but it bugs me. If you go back to the first pressing, because I think I fixed this for the second pressing of discs for Spyro 1. If you look at his wings, this is an example. See how the wings there, the spars that come out across the wing all meet at that knuckle in the middle. They all come to V's into the point right here at the top. that's how they work. I mean, it's because basically a dragon's wings are their hands or bats. It was just the way I applied the textures on the first Spyro. If you go back and play the original Spyro, that's wrong. I can't remember what they all go to the inside. Anyway, they're just wrong. And
no one noticed.
It wasn't until the game was shipped, I'm like, oh crap, that's so I fixed it. But there's a million copies of Spyro out there with the wings wrong. No one has ever mentioned it except for me, but every time I see an old Spyro video or whatever, I'm like, oh, there's that wing. So
I'll try to find one of those first prints.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can you tell us a little about when you left Sega?
It was, I remember I was getting frustrated because there were so many things getting canceled and so much of your work got wasted and cut from games. But then they picked up, Sega wanted Astropede. So I'm like, okay, awesome. I'm definitely staying for this. And then Astropede got canceled. And I got put on, boring kind of cleanup work for Comix Zone. And so at that point, I really started to think I needed to leave. I need to get out of here. And then the moment that something clicked and morale in general was just crap. It was horrible. And in fact, Roger Hector, very charismatic guy, very nice guy, did not get along with him. He just I don't know how he had a nickname of the Teflon Don and all these names, because no matter what happened, it was never his fault. Everything just slid off him. And I remember once somebody hung up on the company bulletin board. There was a comic strip here called Dilbert. There was this character. There was all these office jokes about how horrible things that happens in office. And there was a Dilbert about somebody or Dilbert putting this thing up of complaining about office management, and the office management saying, "Come up and you can't put that on this because it talks bad about management." Somebody put that on the wall at STI, and Roger says, "No, you got to take that down." Did you read the comic?
It's the exact joke.
It's exactly. It was just painful. It's like, did you read this? Did you? But anyway, but the turning point that just something went click in my head is I went down to talk. I'm not one to just whine and complain someplace. If I'm going to whine and complain, it's, I try to do it to somebody who can do something about it. And so I went down to talk to Roger and about morale and the problems and not that I had any solutions, but I just wanted to make sure. And was in there for an hour and a half talking. And got up and shook hands, walked out the door, got about 6 steps out the door and just went, what the? And I realized I'd spent the last hour of that hour and a half apologizing for the morale problems being my fault. And I realized that no, whatever magic superpower he has, he'd worked it on me. He'd flipped it around. It wasn't him, it was me. And I literally walked to my desk and called Mark Cerny and said, "Mark, what do you got?" And that was the moment where I realized. I was also very concerned. It was becoming more obvious that STI was imploding. They were just incapable of getting the game out the door. And they were doing Sonic for the Saturn, which should have been huge. I mean, talk about an opportunity. And I could just tell, it's like, no, that's not going to happen. There's the people they've got on that just aren't qualified, and I would love to have worked on it, but I knew I wasn't qualified to lead that. I'm a horrible manager. I don't like to manage. I don't even like to art direct. I love working in a team.
Mhm.
I almost need to work in a team where it's cooperative and you're bouncing ideas and art off each other. But I really don't like telling people what to do.
Yeah.
And that's what led to my problems at Insomniac eventually.
Wow.
So yeah, it was, yeah, I can still see that hallway. That's burned in my brain.
You stayed working in Insomniac from 96
95.
to
95.
95 to 2006.
Yeah, 2000,
that
yeah,
is?
into 2005, summer of 2005.
Okay.
So yeah, I called Mark, and he said that he had a team that that needed an artist, but that they were in LA.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd heard he was starting up a new team, and but he says, oh yeah, I've got one you'd be great for. They're in LA, and I was a little hesitant because at that time my son was 6 years old. And oh, by the way, a little side note here, he's now 31, and he and his wife just had their first baby, so I'm now a grandfather. Hey.
Oh,
Congratulations.
congrats.
I said, about 3 weeks ago, very surreal.
Wow.
Very surreal. It didn't really hit home because I drove up to spend some time with him and meet Fiona, my granddaughter, and I'm holding her. And Hannah, my daughter-in-law, comes up and says, okay, Fiona, this is your grandfather, this is grandpa. And that holding her and having grandpa said, what? Yeah, it's surreal. It's so anyway.
Wow.
But Brian was 6 at the time. And so I came down, I met Insomniac. There was just 3 of them. And they were doing this Doom clone game.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I wouldn't have really been interested in working on, except for Mark was, and then these guys had never made a game before. They were all completely just had, different industries. But I had faith in Mark, and if he said they're competent and good, and I wanted to work with Mark again. And so they offered me, I was going to just do contract work for him because I didn't want to leave my son. And Mark suggested, he's like, well, 3 months, help them finish Disruptor, and we'll fly you back and forth between LA and San Jose each weekend. I went, oh yeah, I can do that for 3. I talked to my son, talked to my ex-wife, like, I could do that, for 3 months. 10 years later, I'm still flying back and forth every weekend.
Wow.
Because at the end of that 3 months or a little bit more, Ted says, hey, do you want to go, full time? You want to actually, become an employee? Yes, absolutely. And so.
Yeah, and Insomniac became, Insomniac became a huge deal in the industry, right? They are still going on strong and making crazy good games right now.
Yeah, I don't follow them much. The one thing I did see was their newest Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah,
it's the first one I've seen them put out to go, I need to get the new PlayStation because I want to play that. Yeah, it was interesting because when I was there, and then we were putting calls out for artists and programmers and whatnot, for Disruptor. Although I think most of the other people we had there were contract, even after I went full time. But we're having a hard time getting people. Disruptor came and went, and the most accurate review I read on Disruptor was the best little game you've never heard of. Because the people who reviewed it loved it. We got 5 stars across the board almost. But Universal Studios spent almost nothing on advertising. I think we had a 1-page ad in a couple of magazines 1 month was it. So I remember specifically going into a game store and asking them about Disruptor, and he says, what? And I go, Disruptor, the PlayStation? I haven't heard of it. I go, it's on the shelf behind you.
Wow.
Like, oh yeah. So, and then even when we started Spyro, it was hard to get resumes, hard to get people to send in stuff. Now by Spyro 2, we're getting flooded now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then pretty soon we're stealing people from Disney and stealing, we've got, top line art people coming in. So
Yeah, and the Spyro remake was released like 2 years ago.
is it that
I
long
guess.
ago? Oh crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very nice because it was a pretty close
They
remake.
did a good job.
Yeah.
They did a good job. I was honestly, I'd heard rumors of that.
Mhm.
And like that would be nice. I'd love to see that. Because I'd always been thinking, what could we do on the PS4? Now because
Yeah.
what limits could we push now? Because it doesn't matter how fast your system is, you're pushing them. It really does not matter how hard and how fast, how many polygons or how many frames per second. You're going to push it every single time. But then a friend, not from the industry, sent me the trailer and I was a little pissed that no one had contacted me, because once again, it wasn't just a game I worked on.
It was your idea.
It was my idea.
Yeah.
Or my idea spawned it anyway.
Yeah.
And so I was a little upset.
Yeah. I would feel a little hurt.
A little slighted. Now, my ego was soothed once the game actually shipped. Toys for Bob sent me this beautiful little frame, little painting of Spyro and some dragons, and it says, "Thank you for freeing me," and had my name at the bottom. And
that's nice.
That's all. It's like, oh no, I'm good now. I'm good.
No hard feelings.
No hard feelings.
Now we're cool.
Now I have the two comments I have on the reignited remastered version is, well, three. Overall, beautiful. They captured the spirit, they captured the look, but and they nailed Spyro. His model, his model, gorgeous, absolutely beautiful. His color, it's
a little different.
He's pink.
Yeah.
And I actually, when I saw the first trailers, I actually wrote Toys for Bob and said, hey, now this is just my opinion. Not my opinion has a little weight behind it because I painted the original textures. But he's kind of pink. And they, who knows if they read it or not? They didn't, they didn't change anything. But the only real complaint I have is kind of a subjective one. Is just because you can fill the world full of stuff, pots and plants and barrels and hangings, doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
The worlds are a little noisy,
crowded.
They're a little busy, and they change. Occasionally, they would change colors, like rooftops. I'm trying to think. I think it was the Magic Crafter levels. They changed the colors, and it just. I'm like, why? It's not better.
Yeah.
In fact, yeah, and I've heard people complain that the levels are not as distinguished from each other. But overall, I'm not. I will back up and say no complaints, because it's beautiful to have it done and have it out there, and have it still alive and kicking. I remember, because I left. Insomniac left in Spyro after the third game, and then the next game was unplayable. I can't remember who did it. PS2.
I don't remember either.
Unplayable. It was so buggy. The artwork wasn't even good, and it was just unplayable. And we're like, oh, what have they done? Since then, there have been some awesome Spyro games. But I don't know. This was what, 10 years ago now, or 8 years? Anyway, I remember walking through a store and turned an aisle, and there's Spyro merchandise down both sides, towels and lunch boxes, and it's this ugly Spyro, but it's Spyro.
Yeah.
What is this? And Skylanders.
Yeah, Skylanders.
And so as ugly, they beat him with an ugly stick, but it was Spyro, and it introduced Spyro to a whole new generation. I don't know if we'd have the reimagined game if they hadn't done the Skylander games.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but yeah, it was yeah, he was ugly. It's a poor. So it's exciting that it's you have these hopes even on Sonic. At the time, it just doesn't occur to you how long these are going to last.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the impact that they would have in the
definitely
industry.
the impact that was. I'm still grappling with really comprehending that. I have to, because as I say, it's I feel a little bad because I'm not this hardcore gamer, you know, and so, but if I take the things that I am a little fanatical about, and you know, like a huge Star Wars fan. Also, Star Wars Legos behind me. Huge Star Wars fan. I've got Stormtrooper armor, a couple of different sets.
Wow.
That's
and
nice.
You know, so yeah, I remember even as a kid and the original Star, you know, watching Star Wars and you know magazines and comparing, zooming in and you know magnifying glass to try and find little details. And more currently here with like this armor of freeze frames and reading all these forums to figure out, well, is this the right button for the armor? Is this button in the right place? Is this crease the right place for the crease? You know, just asininely minute kind of details. And I look at how Star Wars affected my life, you know, and wanting, you know, you know, help direct me in wanting to do art as a, you know, initially I wanted to do production design for movies because of Star Wars. And so it's trying to put this in something where I can appreciate better how this has impacted people's lives.
Yeah, those games, they changed the lives of a lot of people. I mean, Sonic 2 for me, it was a huge deal. I became a fanatic for Sonic because of Sonic 2. And Spyro, I remember a lot of people were really addicted to it. A lot of friends of mine, they would play it all the time and the same stages and stuff like that. And Ratchet and Clank, a lot of people love this game.
I love the worlds in Ratchet and Clank. Well, the characters are great. Clank, I love Clank. And the worlds are just, you know, some of them are just gorgeous. They're, you know, it almost like you just be able to run around in those. It's almost that point where I just want to explore what's on the other side of that hill.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Somebody there's a somebody sent me a YouTube link. It's actually somebody else I was doing a little interview with, and somebody has put Spyro in Half-Life.
Wow.
And so I've never really played
That's
Half-Life,
a weird combination.
but it's this beautiful Spyro model running around, and there's gems and sparks is behind him, and he's flaming stuff, and it's like, this is so cool because it's it's this purple dragon, cartoony dragon in this hyper realistic
sci-fi.
This is cool.
Really nice.
This is cool. My son this when I went up to see my granddaughter, I don't remember who did it, but there's not an engine. There's you can run games. He had the original Quake and Minecraft that you run it through this code or whatever, and it doesn't change any of the models or any of that kind of stuff or textures. It just ray traces everything. So all of a sudden your lighting is hyper realistic. So you've got shadows that move, and the depth, you know, Minecraft, which is, you know, it's blocks. All of a sudden there was depth, and the water, no changes, no texture change. All of a sudden the water was water, and you drop down below it and you're underwater. It's not just a palette shift. And
it gets beautiful.
It was very beautiful.
Yeah.
And
Minecraft
I would love
ray
to
tracing
see,
and stuff like that.
I'd love to
really
see the
nice.
original Spyros run through that same, with just same technique, you know, and just with ray tracing, you know, because all of our lighting there is literally us going through and adding color to pixels, to vertices in the model. Although
it can be done. I don't. It can be done. I'm sure it definitely could. We can try to get in touch with someone who knows how to do this. Maybe
it's in, you know, because Spyro won, you know, all the awards for best graphics and most beautiful and all that kind of stuff. But I have to, when I do go back and see it or watch it or play it, I have to, there's a little part of my brain I got to turn off and kind of put to the back. Because the polygons, the textures are still beautiful, the worlds are, but you watch the enemies or Spyro and the textures are kind of dancing around on you, and you're like, oh, you just remember at the time, this was state of the art. This was pushing the envelope. Because you're like, oh, look at that. Oh. It's one of the comparisons I like to make in trying to help myself and help other people comprehend the huge change between the platforms is, if you go back to Spyro, PlayStation 1, I think Spyro had 400 polygons, if I remember right. And I'm trying to remember, I think it was like 8,000 polygons for the world, and that was the biggest we could go. We run into troubles even that big. So 8,000 polygons. The map would be like 2 pieces of graph paper stuck together. Or maybe 4 pieces, you know, at the biggest. Jump ahead to the PlayStation 2 for Ratchet and Clank. I think Ratchet's shoe had more than 400 polygons. But there's specific. I don't know how well you guys know the game, but in Metropolis, there's a scene where you're on this kind of balcony looking down this, you know, big boulevard with flying cars, and there's buildings down the side, and there's a big train station, a big pyramid-shaped building at the far end of this massive city. That building has 8,000 polygons. So that building has more polygons than a Spyro level, Spyro world. The footprint of that building, the base of that building, you could take an entire Spyro world and sit it in there.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that's the scale difference between a PS1 and a PS2 game.
Yeah.
You know, it was just mind-blowing, the difference.
I feel like one of the advantage the 2D games had is that, especially Mega Drive, Saturn games, they were at the peak of the power of the console, so you could make beautiful games. When you play a Sonic game, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, or Comix Zone or something like that, it doesn't get much better than that. That they're beautiful, and they are still beautiful, and in 50 years, 100 years, they'll still be
beautiful. Yes.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, but when you play the early 3D games, they were like
they're painful.
No, at the time, I remember back then, we used to play like, you're playing Metal Gear Solid, and we used to say, whoa, it's like a movie and stuff like that. And now you play it and it's like no.
The trailer I saw, the ad I saw for the new Ratchet and Clank game, when it would cut back and forth between movie scenes and gameplay, but the only way you could tell really that they changed was the camera all of a sudden snapped behind Ratchet.
Yeah.
Because the environments were this close to the movie quality cutscenes.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's come a long way.
Yes.
That's true.
You know, the real-time rendering of these worlds.
Yeah. I want to ask you something, because you worked at Sega at the peak of the war with Nintendo. So I feel like there was a feeling of picking a side and
absolutely
fighting against this enemy and stuff like that. But then after you left Sega, you went to work not directly at Sony, but with Sony, making games for the PlayStation. And then by then, Sony was Sega's biggest enemy, because Nintendo was still an enemy, but Sony was the great new contender, the great new enemy. How did you feel about it? Suddenly you're working for the enemy or something like that.
I think I was looking at it, now I'm working for the winning side.
Yeah.
I'm now working on who's got the best hardware
Mhm.
and is making the best games. By the time I left Sega, I was so disillusioned with their ability, at least Sega America, to get a game
Mhm.
out the door,
Yeah.
and the politics and that kind of stuff. So that was definitely clouding my thing, my look. The only real time that, and it still is just bizarre to me, was when, I can't remember which game it was. All of a sudden, now you could play Sonic on a Nintendo system.
It was in
Sonic Adventure 2
2002.
Battle.
I'm like,
Yes.
no. You know, I guess I didn't
That's
see.
wrong.
I guess I didn't see it being a war anymore when I was at Sony against these other companies. But there was still this loyalty
Yeah.
of Sega and Nintendo, and
Yeah.
you'll never be friends. And so when
They
you
do-
get
they
also
don't
like,
mix.
no, you've lost, you've sold out. No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's still
I
wrong.
remember
It's
it
still-
was
it's
very
like,
traumatic for me.
it's like getting a Big Mac at Burger King or
Yeah.
it's just
Yes.
no.
And actually, a lot of people who worked at Sega went to work for Sony in the PlayStation, like Mark Cerny and Al Nilsson, I guess.
Okay.
He was had marketing on Sega, as far as I remember, and he left Sega to work with Sony for the release of the PlayStation 1. So Sony had a lot of ex Sega employees,
Yeah,
right?
you know, I can't speak for them, but if I had to guess, is they're following the technology.
Yeah.
I'm pretty certain. You know, so once again, I used to. You know, I haven't talked to Mark in years now. I'd love to catch up with him and just spend an afternoon chatting with him. But my guess, you know, when he left STI, he went to Crystal Dynamics.
Yeah.
Which at the time was doing 3DO games, which was supposed to be the new hot tech. And
we all know how that turned out.
Because actually Disruptor was supposed to be on the 3DO.
Yeah.
And so when I started there, we were doing it for the 3DO. And before we finished, we're like, yeah, no, let's talk to Sony. Let's get this, you know, because Mark's like, let's get over on the PlayStation. So my guess is Mark has been following, not following, he's been on the leading edge of the technology.
Mark certainly, he has had a huge influence on the industry. From Sega to Crystal Dynamics and Insomniac and Sony, Naughty Dog, yeah. And he actually designed the PlayStation 3 and 4, or PlayStation 4 and 5. I guess.
4 and 5.
4 and 5.
Yeah.
And he's a huge deal.
Yeah, no, he really is.
He's always been, actually. Since the 80s.
Marble Madness. You go back and, you know, classic arcade games, and there he is, and he's
exactly.
How old was he when he did like Marble Madness?
He's always been interested in the technology itself, not as much as this company or that company or something like that.
I would have to say, not having talked to him, but I would have to say, he's not loyal to a company.
Yeah,
it's about the technology and being able to create what he wants to create, you know, and whatever's going to get his designs. I don't know how much design. I'm curious to know how much influence, if he's doing anything with the actual games now, or if he's focused on the hardware.
The last game that I'm aware that he developed was Knack 2. He made Knack for the PlayStation 4 and Knack 2 as well. But that was like, I want to say like 5 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that. I don't know what he's doing now.
I've lots of, well, that, you know, I'm embarrassed to say that the newest system I have is a PS2, and it's in a box in the garage.
Well, you need to take a look at those boxes.
Yeah.
Please.
So.
Wow.
Although I say I just got a new TV and it only has HTML plugs.
Yeah.
There are
they don't have AV
RCD
anymore.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, how do I? Okay, I'm assuming somebody makes adapters and whatnot.
Yeah.
But so it's yeah, I consider myself very fortunate. You know, one, you get hooking up with Mark,
Yeah.
and being able to kind of ride his coattails up through and being at the right place at the right time. You know, it's this. I mean, if you just step back and look at it, the second game I ever worked on was Sonic 2. You know, arguably one of the coolest, most important games in the industry historically.
Yeah.
And then to go on and smaller games, but that were just were as influential within their thing, like Comix Zone. You know, just even though I had very little input on that, just being part of it and working with the people that I've worked with over the years. Very fortunate.
You had a huge career, and you've been a part of many games that shaped not one generation, but like two generations, three generations.
And that's where, it's that they're still making Spyro games, and they're still making Ratchet and Clank games. They're still, it's kind of a given they're making still. You're hoping you're still making Sonic games, but.
Well,
you didn't see that one going. I didn't see that one going away anytime soon.
Yeah. So Sonic Mania.
This year is the 30th anniversary for Sonic.
Yeah.
And the whole world expects that at some point this year Sega will make an announcement or something. Like, we're making this game, we're making this movie, something. And until now, Sega hasn't spoken a word about it. We have no idea what they're planning, or if they are actually planning anything. We all hope they are.
My fear is that they're kind of going, oh crap, 30 years?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe we should do something. No. You've got a couple of months here now. It's too late.
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, even if they just revisited some stuff, we'll go back and do another Sonic Tuesday.
Exactly.
Go out and do something on Alcatraz. The rock the block.
That's true.
Block, whatever that was. Rock the rock, whatever it was. So.
Yeah, I guess it was Rock the Rock.
Rock the Rock. I've got my little badge. I was there. I've got my little badge for it. So
that Sega used to have those amazing ideas for marketing, and they just lost it along the way.
The biggest problem that Sega seemed to have from just post Genesis, was the ability was hardware. Was they kept releasing new hardware without backing it up with games, and just left people hanging. The 32X, and then Sega CD, and then Nomad, and I can't even remember the Mars. It all Saturn. And it's just like no, pick one and run with it. Even if it's not, even if better tech comes out, no, you got to stick with this for a couple of years.
I always felt like Sega was really strong as the underdog, and after the Mega Drive, they were so huge, everyone knew them, and they didn't have this appeal anymore. And
they lost something.
I feel like they didn't know what to do with the newly acquired fame that they had,
or fear of losing that, so they were just going to grab at anything. It's like if you're a cheetah chasing zebras, you got to pick a zebra.
Yeah, exactly.
If you change every time one comes closer, you're never going to catch any zebras. And that's
true.
Kind of what Sega was doing. It's like, ooh, this is better. Ooh, this is better. It also didn't help that they never got a Sonic title out for the Saturn.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. That's true. They had like Sonic R. It was a racing game. And it was also released for the PC. Sega always had this idea that releasing games for PC wouldn't hurt sale of the consoles. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I think you need, yeah.
They released Sonic CD for PC and Sonic R for PC and stuff like that. And I played Sonic CD on the PC way before I could get my hands on a Sega CD, you know. And another problem is that those games were most of the times better on PC. So people, that was kind of they were hurting themselves, you know.
Yeah,
because,
I would.
Oh, you can play Sonic on the PC, and it's better on the PC. So why are you going to buy our console? You know.
Well, you definitely got to have a couple of really good games. I'm curious, with the first Xbox, if they hadn't had Halo, if you took Halo out of the equation, would Xbox have made it? I'm not
Halo has a crazy history because it was
started as a Mac.
Yeah, it was
game,
announced
right?
as a game for Mac because Apple didn't have any games back then. Games were only released for Windows. So Steve Jobs announced Halo, the first announcement. Yeah, this game, war game, is going to be released for Mac and stuff like that. And then they gave up on Mac, and it was announced that it would be released for the Dreamcast. And then the Dreamcast died, and they announced that they would release it for the Xbox. And people were like, release what? Halo? Oh yeah, that thing you announced like 3 years ago, right? Oh, okay. But after it was released, when it hit shelves, it was crazy. People couldn't stop
everything,
playing it. The online was crazy.
Especially for the online, right?
Yeah.
But without Halo, Xbox maybe wouldn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if it would have survived.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
So.
And Sega actually briefly considered having a deal with Microsoft of exclusivity.
Yeah, so, I remember there were a number of interesting almost merges.
But it was actually the whole industry has crazy.
Didn't Sony and Nintendo almost?
Yes, almost in the SNES.
Yeah.
Nintendo hired Sony to make a CD add-on for the Super Nintendo, but Sony made a prototype, but it wasn't very good, and Nintendo got pissed, and they turned out they gave up, and Sony went like, yeah, well, we have this old console here, let's try to make a whole one by ourselves, and we all know how that turned out in the end.
But you need that competition.
Yeah,
I think sometimes you can get screwed up by it, like Sega did. Of like, oh, here. Yeah. But you need that competition to push yourself. You'd like to think we push ourselves just because we want to, but we tend to push, even if people can. You always push yourself harder when there's a conflict. The best, some of the most incredible technologies we have right now come from the military.
Yeah.
And it's not that we couldn't have come up with all this tech on, for non-military uses.
Yeah.
But it's expensive, it's time consuming. There's who wants to take the risk.
Yeah.
That's true. And space exploration, as I say, so much tech comes from the space exploration. There's people who are like, well, why are we spending millions of dollars trying to go to the moon or for this or for that? It's like, you do realize the computer you're using is because of the space industry.
Microwaves,
that everything around you pretty much now is space industry or space military. Because you need that opposition to force ourselves to grow and take risks. you know, and beat this other guy's game. You know,
Yeah,
they've got a successful game. Oh, we've got to come up with something. You know, you want to do that regardless, but there's that motivation on a corporate level. You know, because it takes money. You know, it's.
Yeah.
I remember that was the realization when Sega gave the go ahead to Astropede, and they estimated a budget of about $1 million. And
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like
okay.
one day you have an idea and you talk to your boss, and then he said, "Yeah, sounds nice. I'll get $1 million
Here's
to
$1
make
million
this
for you."
idea." Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have actually two more questions for you. I don't know, Luis might have more questions,
Well,
but
we passed like 2 hours of interview. I don't know if
yeah.
Craig is busy, you know, we'll be busy. So,
I'm
okay, I
sorry,
think
we're kind of
just,
fanboys. You have to
yeah.
understand that.
Well,
I wanted to.
I enjoyed this. I love talking with people.
Mhm.
I'm hoping, you know, I'm always hoping that someone will ask a question that clicks something,
Yeah.
because there's so much I've forgotten and so much that's blurred together. And once again, this realization that of the people that just, you know, want to know the details and want to know these little things. Like I said, I've got those drawings of these horrible little drawings. I think the reasons I've never shared them of that circus concept for Sonic 2 is I'm not happy with those drawings. I don't like those drawings. It was a bad idea and they're horrible sketches. And there's just one little page of them. But people want, you know, there's people go, awesome, yes, please. And so
Yeah, I want to see them.
yeah, I thought I'd had those scanned in, but that was the one sketchbook that never got properly scanned in. And so I need to go, I think it's sitting right here.
Maybe it's in the mysterious box.
No, the sketchbook I know I have. The sketchbook I know I have. In fact, I think it's sitting in a stack of books right there. But yeah, because it does. It's a sketch. It's a hardbound sketchbook, so it doesn't lay flat, and so it didn't get scanned. And I think, yeah. Anyway.
I wanted to ask you, do you remember any stage that was cut from a game or a prototype or something like that that maybe we don't know yet?
Not that I can think of.
Because I'm sure that there were a lot of projects going on all the time.
Yeah.
And just like that Tails prototype that we never knew about it.
I know on Spinball, there was originally one more level, that the level I did, the toxic pools, I think the original map was toxic pools on it, was the second level. So the first level was this water caves level. And I'm not sure how much, I think it's a relatively significant amount of work was done on that, because that was Brenda Ross doing level 1. And then it got cut and kind of merged. So I reworked the bottom half of my level to be more water and not green acid toxin. I do remember Brenda being furious, justifiably so, because she'd just come from Sonic 2 where all of her work had been cut.
Yeah.
She, you know, it's
yeah. She worked in Wood Zone, Desert Zone, those stages that were cut, right?
Yeah. So it's just she just had a really long string of really crappy luck. I consider myself very fortunate at STI that the percentage of my art that made it into the finished game. I had friends there, Brenda and others, who worked for 2 years and 3 years, never got art on the shelf at the store.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that was one thing I really liked when I went to Insomniac, is very rarely did art get wasted or anything get wasted. They were really good at, you know, we'd have these big plans.
Yeah.
But we would pare stuff down early, and if you were moving along and you saw something, it was like, no, it got cut early. It got cut before you spent 3 months building it.
Yeah.
And that was huge. It was nice to have, 90% of your work get in the game and not 30% of your work get in the game. So, but I don't think, I'm trying to think, as I said, there was, games that got canceled. There was Spinny and Spike. There was this Steve Woida and Jason Plum, the two programmers. There's actually quite a bit out on it because people found old discs with artwork and stuff. And I've got some background concept art I did for that. There's the Jester game I talked about, Astropede. I'm trying to think what else. There was a number of other ones, but Levels. Yeah, not that I can think of. Not that it hasn't been dug up and found already, at least.
I see.
Oh, and if you remember something, you just send it to us, and we'll be
send us a message, please. Yeah.
Yeah.
To end the interview, then I wanted to ask you, since you left Insomniac in 2005, what have you been up to?
Well, I left the industry in 2005 basically because I had more or less a nervous breakdown. That anxiety I was talking about way back when, feeling in my first days and weeks at Sega, had been building dramatically the last year and a half or 2 years at Insomniac. And something finally snapped. I was just feeling pressure. I was feeling like they didn't want me there because for the last several years I was at Insomniac. Well, my first years at Insomniac during like Spyro, I can remember feeling very nervous because I was behind schedule and I'm working late. And Ted comes up behind me and says, "Hey, can I see you in my office?" And going, "Oh, I'm busted. I'm late. I know I'm behind." And I'd go into his office and he would say, "Craig, we couldn't do this without you. Here's a 10% raise." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, awesome. I'll go get back to work." And that happened twice and maybe even a third time. Maybe not 10% the whole time, but it was like, "We couldn't do this without you. Here's a big raise."
Yeah.
And then I think it was during Ratchet 1. "Hey, Craig, can I see you in my office?" "Yeah, go in, sit down." Now I'm not worried. It's like maybe in the back of my mind, I'm like, "Hey, I got another raise coming."
Yeah, another raise.
And he says, "Yeah, if you're late on this level, we're going to have to fire you."
Wow.
And I went, "Oh, well, okay, I know I'm behind, but yeah, I'll put some extra time in." And left. Went to lunch. And I'm at lunch, and all of a sudden I went, "Wait, did he just threaten to fire me?" And I went back and said, "Ted," and he goes, "Yeah, I was surprised you didn't respond. A little more." I'm like, "Well, because that's asinine. Everyone's behind."
Yeah.
I should have, looking back on it, because that's when it started. After that, it was raises and bonuses started being substantially cut dramatically. Where I'm not even getting a normal raise. I'm getting half of what I would normally to the normal raise.
Yeah.
And bonuses cut in half. And this constantly being told, "Well, that's because you're making too much money for your job description. The industry average now is this much money, and you're making this much," which was true. I was making about 20% above what the industry average was. But it was just this, and just pressure of, and they wanted me to do more management, and I'm, yes, it's like, as I said, I'm not a great art director. I love working with people, and I love pulling to help together and being the focal point. But telling people, "This sucks. You're staying all weekend until it's fixed. You can't go home until that works." I couldn't do. I sucked at it. So they would go home and I would spend the weekend fixing it, which meant I was behind on my artwork because I was fixing other people's bugs. And so finally something snapped. We finished Deadlocked, the fourth Ratchet game. And we're now gearing up. There's already been groups working on Resistance on the PS3. And so now we're taking the Ratchet team, my art team, and spinning them up and training them to work on the PS3 and the new hardware and software. And so I sat down with the guys that were doing that, learned all the software, the new 3D, because completely dramatically more power. Once again, that whole quantum leap in polygons and lighting systems. Learned it all, taught my team, sat down to do it myself, and nothing. Just literally just couldn't do the most simplest tasks, much less anything creative. And was finally pulled in, and they said, yeah, we'd like to, you can resign and take half your bonus, or we can fire you.
Mhm.
So they, on one hand, they were nice about it. On the other hand, I'm not, but I should have left after Ratchet 1, looking back at it. I made the mistake of literally thinking of Insomniac as family.
Yeah.
I'd been there since the beginning. You could make the argument of, would there be an Insomniac if not for Spyro?
That's true.
Because Disruptor came and went, and they, that got done. And if they had another Disruptor, good game or not, Insomniac probably would have gone, because Spyro got Sony's attention. And Sony says, okay, no, we're going to take over marketing. We're going to take over the production of this, or, producing this and marketing this. So had they done another Disruptor, who knows,
that's true.
But I definitely made the mistake of, and I will take blame. I was going to say credit. I'll take blame on, I think people felt that I was taking advantage of the fact that I was somehow this golden boy. And so therefore I didn't have to do this, or I didn't have to do that, or, and there was definitely some of that. I mean, I'll admit to a certain amount of arrogance, or arrogance isn't the right word, maybe something in my attitude about being better or special or something. And that definitely rubbed some people the wrong way. And so, so I was asked to leave, but I figured I'd take a few months off, because I definitely need to decompress.
Yeah.
I thought, I'll take a few months off, take 6 months off. I've got enough money. I don't need, I can. And after about 6 months, it's like, okay, I can't go back to the industry. So I actually pursued a couple of small business plans with a buddy that didn't go anywhere. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, now I'm out of money. But all this time seeing a nice shrink, and it was just I was getting worse. I was getting where I was non-functional, even in just everyday life. And so that's why I've never gone back. And as I say, I've been working at this children's museum for the past couple of years, few years, and there's something about that doesn't, well, it still triggers my anxiety. But because of the people there, my coworkers and my bosses, and you're working with kids. And there's something about that, even when I can feel that anxiety wanting to shut my brain down, now I've got some techniques to deep breathing and that kind of stuff. And I go through it regularly, even when I'm doing, it's as stressful, I've got to go and sing songs to a bunch of 3-year-olds, like, but I can do it. It's something there. It's something about that situation and those people that I'm able to deal with it. But I look back and wonder if I had left Insomniac mid Ratchet and Clank, if I wouldn't have had that final snap. Because looking back at it, I've had this anxiety my whole life. But I've been around people who have been in a situation where I could deal with it, so I wasn't really aware of it. I read a thing recently, and somebody described it perfectly. Because there's a lot of people have it, and some people deal with it okay, and some people don't at all. But this guy described it, guy or a woman, I think it was a guy, that even though he's an adult, when he goes to do so many just basic things, he feels like the 9-year-old that's been left at the store, and he's waiting for his mom to come back, and he's got to go pay for the counter by himself. And like that anxiety of a scared little 9-year-old, like, yes, it's not logical, but it's paralyzing. But
it's the same feeling.
It's the same feeling. It's paralyzing. I even have a hard time. My son sent me some pictures of his daughter, and wants me to just do just a little touch up on her because she's got the little baby acne and she's just really cute. And they want some nice pictures but it's like, what can you, and I offered, I go, hey, I could just, a little Photoshop and I could just touch that up and she just look like and I sit down to do it and then anxiety wells up. And I've never been able to do freelance work, even as far back as high school. Something about, now it's my job and I've been hired, I could do work. If I was asked to do that same exact stuff for freelance, I've known forever that I can't. My brain just, writer's block, art block seizes up. And I can remember once at Sega, pretty early on, one of the game designers there had a friend who was going to pitch this idea for a movie. And she needed an artist to do some concept production paintings and drawings. And he approached me and I says, no, I'd love to. And it was a movie about dragons. And I would love to, but I can't. And he says, well, it's $25,000 for about 2 weeks of work. I went, oh, no, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. And about 3 days in, I had to call and say, I can't do this. I've got another artist lined up that can pick it up, but I can't do this. Had that been the same exact, if we were doing it, at a job, somewhere that's different in my brain. Yeah. Unfortunately, whatever it was that has been blocking me since forever as freelance artist kicked in to even jobs. And crashed and burned. And yeah.
No, but now you've been working at this museum with kids, and
which I love. Now it's been closed since last March because of COVID.
Yeah.
And every time I go someplace and I see a parent playing with some kids, I'm like, I miss work.
Yeah, but I feel like when you're working with video games and stuff like that, you're kind of creating products sometimes aimed at kids, but you're not working with them. You don't get to see them when they're playing your game and stuff like that. And it always felt to me that it was kind of weird to work with a bunch of adults, and everyone's an adult, but you're making stuff for children. And you don't have any children around.
I think a lot of these people, I know me, I'm a big kid. I mean, look at the Legos.
Yeah.
The yellow and blue things behind me, those are sorted Legos. Those are all sorted out by color, shape, and type. Those used to be down in the living room, and my girlfriend just was getting, didn't appreciate the Legos taking up the entire wall of the living room.
Too many Legos.
Too many Legos. So I think those of us that are in touch with our childhood and our inner child, it works. It's because we are big kids. I totally am. I'm a big kid. So
that's good.
Good.
That's why you understood us so well, and that's why we loved your games so much.
Well, I think that is an issue of if I'd stayed in the industry, or if I tried to go back now, I'm 57, coming up on 58 really quick here, and most people making games are your guys' age or younger. And so once again, and getting caught up, as I said, I never would have been a particularly good game designer, and it definitely was going to be a problem if Astropede had gone further. Although I was playing more games back then but you got to play. You've got to know. You got to build that foundation, and culturally, what's significant now.
That's true.
What's going to work, but it's also some of it's kind of dumb luck, or you just get this feeling, I don't know how it all falls in. A lot of my very fortunate career kind of is dumb luck, being in the right place, and being around the right people. I've been asked multiple times, if I have any interest in going back to the industry, or what it would take to bring me back. And in the broad stroke, no, I don't have any interest in going back. But, if I've always said, if the right people, because I miss working as a team. I really do miss that. I feel it definitely makes my work better. And I like to think that I contribute and make other work better, but I know for a fact it makes my work better.
Yeah.
But a chance to do see Astropede, completed. I would risk it and find the right medication to get
it would have been very nice.
Sure. There is a huge Genesis homebrew scene.
It's totally possible. It's very possible.
You just need to find the right people.
Find the right people. Yeah. And then the other ones was Mark Cerny. If Mark called, hey, you want to do, I would jump at that. And then
that's what I was
didn't occur till just the other day was if Yasuhara called.
Wow.
I haven't talked to him I haven't seen him in 25 years. But always enjoyed working with him, always respected him. And as both as a person and a coworker and as a, may I say, genius in his designs. That I would, if Mark or Yasuhara called, I would go, okay, I want to do this. I need to do this. So
you see, I really like your style, and I feel like it fits with this series by Mark, Knack. Who knows? Maybe Knack 3.
I'm sure I probably have seen images of that. I'll have to look that up.
It's very interesting. It's very polygonal. It has a lot of physics to it. You should check it out. It's really nice, and I'm sure you'll do a great job there.
As I look, you were talking about what Insomniac's been doing the past few years, and honestly, I haven't seen anything that's really jumped out. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's nothing that I would go, oh, I wish I was working on that.
Yeah, they're making the Spider-Man games.
Spider-Man, see, it's cool. Part, I am a fan of Spider-Man, but I would have no desire to work on a game.
Yeah.
Because you've got as an artist, you've got no control. Over it. It's one of the reasons that I backed away from doing movie stuff, production art, because I realized that if you're at the top of the ladder, you get to do all the fun stuff. At the bottom, you're just painting, doing something to match what somebody else is doing in Tunisia or wherever, and it's just it lost interest for me. But it's so there's a small window of reasons why I would come back. But
it's nice. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a new game with you.
And I'd love to have a new interview about this game if one day it happens.
There we go. Well, I'm saying if I can find that lost ROM of Segapede,
please
that would, even if I'm not involved, somebody just polish that up and get that out there, or do something, because I think that game concept, the whole pod,
I really like the concept
thing is still very valid. Lots and lots of gameplay issues that were never resolved because we never got that far into it. There are going to be lots of kinks that need to be worked out, but
it's a very interesting idea, a concept. I'm sure if we can get the ROM, we can maybe try to make it work and build at least a prototype.
It'd be interesting to see because also we've got the advancement of tech. That would be interesting to see if how much that would affect being able to make the physics work. The physics were, I remember Ken complaining that or just commenting that the physics on it of this train and having it move right and was complex. So.
I see. Well,
Wow.
Craig, thank you so much
thank
for
you
this
so
my
interview.
pleasure.
It was great talking to you, learning all those things about your work in the industry. And I'm glad to know that you're working and happy with this museum that will soon come back.
I hope
sure.
so.
Yeah.
I miss it. I miss it a lot.
And we'll be hoping for this mysterious box to show up.
My fear is that I had my garage door open one day and somebody walked away with it.
That would be so sad. But
So,
maybe
not.
this mysterious robber can release the rock and maybe return your stuff. Hopefully.
I say again, I got all my signed games in it.
Yeah. I wouldn't be so hopeful about that.
Yeah.
Well,
but I'm sure it will work out, and maybe it's that mislabeled box.
I'm hoping it got mislabeled as the bottom of one of my other miscellaneous. Because I've got when I left Insomniac, well, my office, I had 3 huge bookshelves full of toys, action figures, and all sorts of stuff, and big old long shelf of books I was using as reference materials, and so I've literally got probably a dozen boxes out in the garage. They're all, all my Insomniac stuff, and maybe it's in the bottom of one of those. Somehow when I repacked and moved stuff, it somehow got stuck in one of those, because those ones I haven't gone through. Yeah. Because it shouldn't be in those.
Yeah.
But maybe I had it sitting on my desk as he's like, hey, look what I did. This is 20 years ago. But the signed games, I know I've had those because I went through them, because I pulled out, because I've got 3 signed ones of Ratchet and Clank that I keep meaning to throw up on eBay because I've got 2 sets. But now I only have 1 set because I can't find my original set. So anyway. Well, it's been enjoyable. I've enjoyed talking with you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. So it was such a rich content, and it means a lot to us. And we are going to put like subtitles on the video now. It's like 2 hours and a half. Yes.
Good luck.
But I think we are going to split the video and release it in parts.
Yeah.
And I will send you the links, okay?
Please do.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Well, my pleasure once again. Good luck.
Have
you
a
guys.
nice day.
Enjoy.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.
E aí?
Perfeito, hein, cara?
Da hora?
Deixa eu só
Foi bem
terminar
legal,
de
hein, cara?
gravar aqui. Só que, mano, eu vou falar uma coisa pra você.
Foi muito.
Isso vai ser tipo legendar um filme, vai ser doloroso, velho.
Então, mano, o que eu tava pensando na gente fazer? Eu vou parar de gravar aqui também.
Beleza.
A gente pode dividir em partes e aí a gente vê com a galera